best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm starting to get more and more offers for sponsorship, and they're starting to seem a little bit less like spam and a little bit more like these people actually want to put money into this stupid thing. So good for you. Come on, NordVPN. You haven't made it as a YouTuber if you haven't gotten a NordVPN type offer. So come on, NordVPN. I'm right here, ready to shill your crap. Happy to do it. Anyway, history can teach us a lot. As we look at kind of what's going on in the comic industry today, these aren't unprecedented times. We've had these times before. I don't know why that's an unpopular thing to say. When I say things like that, people tend to get hairy about it. But generally speaking, everything in life, but particularly business, tends to be circular. It tends to repeat. And a lot of the trends, there's a lot of good, valuable information we can gain if you look at how industries and things handled in the past. It's just that it's common sense for you. Now, it doesn't always mean that everything will go exactly as previous, but it is informative. And in comics in particular, I think we've had a couple moments where companies, flushed out, big portions of their business, or there was pretty significant disruption to what they did. And, historically, there was always kind of one consistent way out of it. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but and neither do I, for that matter. So we're going to do it a little bit. But generally, there's a couple models that the comic industry has followed when there have been troubles. When there's troubles in the 90s, and there are troubles in the late 2000s, so there are troubles back in the 70s. There's generally a couple common things that were done, in particular around kind of how the comics were treated in their line, the pricing, offers and deals that were made for distribution. All of these kinds of pieces are, different tactics, but similar themes. What's unique about today, about 2023, is that there is a change clearly going on in the industry. The outcome of that change is what people don't know. It's stupid to deny that there isn't a change. Obviously, there are changes. You look at how smaller companies, some of them are carrying debt. You look at how restructuring is happening within the big companies and some of the small companies. You look at how licenses are being handled or not handled in some cases. It is clear we're in a stage of change and disruption. And but the tactics people are employing are different. So let me read this mail, which asks a question. We'll kind of compare them. It says, "Hello, good Sir Perchington." That's Sir and Knighted, founder and CEO of Perchington Comics. Well, now I'm going to have to call it Perchington Comics. Over the last year, I've been examining and reflecting how the Great Recession, 2007-2009, has affected my life. As you might imagine, it had a great impact that I still feel to this day. As a parent, lost their home during that time. Now, as an adult, I try to look back on these hard times and learn from the mistakes made in the past. Smart to do. It got me thinking about the question I wanted to ask you. How did the Great Recession, in this case, there's several Great Recessions, but in this case, we're talking about the 2007-2009 one. How did it affect the comic industry? More specifically, how did the recession affect comic shops? And if you're willing to share, how did it affect you and your comic business at the time? I hope there's a story here for myself and others to learn from. Well, thank you very much for the mail. So, the 2007-2009 era, there's kind of different ways it affected people. In terms of retail overall, it definitely hurt. And what's often the case in big businesses or chains or kind of retail businesses, and this is true, any kind of business owner who's had any kind of longevity will tell you, that typically there's businesses that are running more hand to mouth. And if there's ever a dip or a downturn, but it doesn't even have to do with a recession. It can do with just, rent was increased, taxes changed, product didn't come in, whatever. Those businesses fold quickly and suddenly. And I'm sure everybody has seen those in life where, a business that you were using or a restaurant you were going to suddenly kind of unexpectedly folded. And that is 99 times out of 100 a result of a business that wasn't healthy, but you didn't know it wasn't healthy. It was already struggling. But then the majority of business closures, kind of what we have for a lot of the big box stores, I was reading up on Bed Bath & Beyond, some of the things they got into. But just a lot of the retail chains, they're, how recessions impact them is kind of a delayed release. The recession, when it hits, typically freezes up money, so it makes it harder to kind of float, and it affects people and their behaviors and their spending habits. In particular, for the 2007-2009 recession that we had, the wave hit people. You saw cost of consumer goods rise in a few cases. You saw money for lending dry up. You saw companies, bigger companies, react as they always do, which is they tightened. They basically pulled back in hiring, and they can do it very easily in a way that doesn't look dramatic. People are pointing to Disney, laying off 7,000 people. I haven't seen a lot of videos, by the way, of Disney's plans to hire 13,000 people for park job. I haven't seen that, but that is news that also hit, I think, on Monday earlier this week. That Disney is actually hiring 13,000 people. It's weird. It's weird how lots of people covered the 7,000 people layoff, but not the 13,000 addition. But I'm just rolling that out there. You can go to Google, see for yourself. But maybe some of these channels that yell and shout about fairness and corrupt media in the news should make sure they cover both parts of the story. I'll say that, and we'll leave it there. But regardless, when companies typically react to a recession, they don't run out and do a big layoff. That comes later. What they do is they quietly run a hiring freeze or a hiring frost. Basically, they close positions. They tell managers, hey, slow roll the person coming in. They basically just put the brakes on. And that has it's an effect that you don't always see. The people who see it are, HR. If you're working, applying for a job, suddenly that job's like, hold on, it's on hold, that kind of stuff. And so when 2007, 2008 rolled in, there was a lot of that. Big companies just basically said, it looks like markets are going to tighten. There's going to be issues in cash flow, just of being able to get cash if we need it. So let's attack the most controllable cost we have, which is people, and we're gonna pause. We're gonna pause our growth. Now, pausing the growth helps big companies survive, and comic shops did the same thing. Smart comic shops said, hey, we're gonna, instead of hiring an extra person, for the shop, we'll just make do with 3 people instead of going for that 4th person. Whatever. There's lots of little things that happen like that. But comic shop is tiny. You're not really going to feel that impact. Big companies, they do that. And the immediate the impact of it is that the big company gets a little bit healthier, for sure. They basically, their books look a little bit more stable. They have forecasting for the next year. They can kind of plot out, and they hope that, the situation clears. But it has a chilling effect. So if money was hard to get before, and people were feeling it at home, okay, now if the job market tightens suddenly in this way, then their situation gets worse. They start preserving capital. And so it has this linked chain effect in economics that can prolong or trigger a full-blown recession. And that's what happened in 2007, 2009. A lot of people thought retail was struggling already. It was. There was a shift happening to online and other services. Big businesses pulled back a little harder than they normally would in terms of hiring closures. Money dried up. People, then got into less services, and there's this ripple effect that fed itself for a while until we started seeing kind of cash freed up and pumped into the system, and then kind of life went on. But in that, retail took a massive hit. Comic shops felt the hit for sure. They did feel like there was a pinch that went on, people buying fewer comics, but a lot of comic shops through the 90s had already acclimated to not over ordering or overspending. If you go back to 94, 95, when shops are like, oh, is Jim Lee on a comic? We'll order, 200 copies. I don't care what the comic is. If it doesn't come out for 6 months because it's late, it's fine. Well, it wasn't fine, but there was a lot bigger ordering. And so when we got to 2007, you have an industry that had been struggling and been feeling it for 10 years. And so, they ordered small. They didn't overhire in terms of resources. So they were already fairly well positioned to survive it. That's why the recession of 07 to 09, you didn't feel a huge impact in comics. But the other thing that happened is that the publishers really kind of buckled down to, here are core stories we want to tell, whether it's Civil War or some of the things that DC was doing at the time. Here's kind of the core stories we want to tell, and let's not mess with the price at the moment, and let's make sure that the distribution channels, they were starting to, that was where they started to do more things with Amazon and graphic novels, and there's an increase in other parts of the business during that time because they were searching out other ways to, operationally get product out the door. And if you go back to kind of the 90s and not the crash, but the recovery coming out of that crash looked like, and you go back to the 80s and the 70s when, DC in the 70s, when you had a similar situation where it collapsed, the common thread is always that you look for, you look for distribution, you lock down some core stories that you plan to tell, and you don't get funny on price. You do those things. That's the antidote to a lot of this, or at least it's, in context. Why I gave you that big long speech at the beginning. If you compare it to how big companies survive recessions, that's how small companies or publishing companies survive recessions. They make sure they have several core products that are easily marketable, easily sellable. They don't tinker with, the characters too much. Captain America needs to be Captain America. It's not the time to suddenly take Captain America off the shelf and make it a robot or a dog Captain America. They keep price as flat as possible, or they keep it the same. They don't start messing around with big overpriced things. They wait until the recovery happens for that. And they go and they pursue channels of where they can sell. If I look at the comic industry, though, of 2022 to 2023, they're not doing some of those things. We are getting, they're taking price all over the place. So you're getting, $9.99 books. You're getting, bigger anthologies. You're getting things that are going to cost more, both for the store to buy and for the consumer to buy. You are not seeing kind of core stories. Even though you kind of had the illusion that with Dawn of DC and other things, but if you look at the titles coming out, they're not easy pitch recognizable books. Same thing with Marvel. That Marvel's easy hook is make it look like the movies. That is recognizable. They're not doing that. Now, I do think with Feige and the changes, we're going to see 2 years of, and it's going to whiplash back to that. But you're not seeing those changes. And you're not seeing, on top of all that, and we've talked about it a lot, you are seeing a pretty heavy denial that anything is wrong. And that is the world that has evolved over the last 6 years or so. And it's, it's political in the sense that we've seen both parties apply it, whether it's, going to your inauguration and saying it's the biggest crowd in history, clearly wasn't, or whether it's, pretending that a bunch of riots going on in 2000 are somehow perfectly safe from COVID. They're totally fine. And this is a peaceful protest, even though buildings are burning down. It's this, I know what you see with your own eyes, but we're going to say, nope, that's wrong somehow. That's a little bit what comics are doing, and that's dangerous. In any kind of recession, whether you're a giant big box store or a comic company, the thing you do is you take steps to basically secure your future, and securing your future means visibility into your future. Do you understand where your money is coming from and how you're going to spend it and what that world looks like for the next, 12 to 18 months? Do you have that visibility? Whether you're an individual person or a business, that is important. If you needed cash to make it through for the next 12 months, how would you do it? And that's the steps you need to take. Get yourself into that position. The worst thing you can do, and so that's why companies, freeze hiring and all the rest. The worst thing you can do is sit there and go, nothing is wrong. Any side of weakness is weakness. We must show strength, and strength means lying. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from companies that do this stuff, is they go, well, it will be worse for us if we show weakness. So therefore, we will deny reality. But the problem is, with a lot of this stuff, it's very exposed. And so, on one hand, for the person denying reality, they're going, we're going to get away with this. We're just going to stay strong, and we're going to put a strong face forward, and nobody will know that problems are bad. Well, that's the kind of company that I talked about at the very beginning that suddenly closes without warning. because it's rotted inside, and they're putting on this strong face. Look, one of the reasons why you should be transparent and open about what's going on is because you'll find a lot of people who will come to help you. They will either with buying comics or thinking about how money can be different or bringing you ideas. Being transparent about your situation opens up the door for help. Being secretive and worse, claiming the exact opposite out of a misguided show of strength. No, everything is absolutely perfect. Nothing to see here. Particularly when people know there is something to see here, it has a terrible effect. People think you're a moron. And people don't like to do business with fools. So, showing strength sounds like a good manly thing to do. It's stupid. In this instance, if your business is suffering, if you're struggling, you don't have to give everybody the gory details of what's going on, but don't lie and deny it. That is, especially if it's out there. And at this point, comics does have obvious struggles, way beyond like, hey, I love whenever I argue with somebody and they come back going, but I'm loving all the comics. Good for you. That's cool. You can love the content, you can hate the content. A bunch of comics going from 6 issues to 5 issues to 4-issue miniseries, creative teams not being able to stick onto books, price hikes out of nowhere all over the place. Penguin Random House just screwing people by not delivering some of the comics they order. Across the board, folding into a big company, big names on top, vanishing. In the last 4 years, we've had Didio and Quesada both gone. We continue to see huge flux. You hear comic creators talking about not getting paid and having to go chase their money and their royalties down, including even from big companies. Creators complaining about not getting their money timely from Marvel. Now, maybe those creators are all lying and the money is but look, again, this stuff stacks up. And eventually you look at it and you go, yeah, there are issues in the comics industry. If we're going to deny it and say everything is awesome, well, you've passed the point where that lie is going to work. People just think you're a fool. And nobody likes to give money to a fool. Anyway, hope that answered your question. Hope it was helpful. There you go. That's, are we in a great recession now? Yeah, probably. I think things get pretty damn ugly here over the next 2 years, unfortunately. So, I hope, protect your assets, buckle down. Now is not the time to run out and buy that second house, just figure out what you're going to do, but gain visibility into your future. Best advice I could give you. Anyway, thanks for listening.